or do you, then
You look at me.
just, okay. Okay, just conscious.
Yeah. Should I say what it's for? No. No.
You don't have to.
Okay. Well, I'm Stacy Montoya. Could you introduce yourself?
Sure.
Yes. What's your name and what's your job and stuff?
My name is David Benavides, and I'm a council member here in the city of Santa Ana. My job outside of being a council member, I'm a realtor, work real estate in Orange County, and just do some volunteer work. Serve on a couple of boards, one of those being KidWorks, which I think we want to talk a little bit about today.
Yes. What are some of your duties as a council member?
As the council, the city is divided into 6 districts. Each district has an elected council member who lives in that district and represents that district. So the council is made up of the 6 council members and the mayor, the 7th person on the council. And essentially, we oversee all the operations of the city and all of the budget of the city. So laying out priorities on where police, for example, services will be focused, or parks, and how parks will be enhanced or improved, or any types of interest, concerns that the community has, and then overall laying out the direction for the city and the future of the city, business growth, where housing is developed, where businesses are designated to be placed within the city. Just overall, again, just the overall operations oversight of the city itself.
Okay. Could you check with the volumes on 10? Open it up a bit, and then lift the little
Make sure it's on 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Today we are speaking about KidWorks and its impact on the community of Santa Ana. Can you please tell me more about your personal history around Townsend area?
Sure. KidWorks is it's a nonprofit in town, community development nonprofit. Right now there's focuses a lot on after-school tutoring, preschool program, a number of different types of classes, from computers to sciences and mentoring. There's about a 10,000 square foot community center that was opened up about 8 years ago or so, and focuses on a couple of the more challenging areas in town in Santa Ana intentionally to work on community revitalization in those neighborhoods. Initially, right now, the main center is by the Myrtle Street community. There's another smaller center by Townsend Street, and then KidWorks right now has a vision of expanding into other pockets of tough neighborhoods in town to be a part of bringing community revitalization in those areas. But going back about 15, 16 years ago, KidWorks is actually what brought me into Santa Ana. I was a college student at the time at Biola University in La Mirada. I had grown up in East Los Angeles, went to Biola, and between, I think it was my sophomore and junior years, I came to Santa Ana. I heard about KidWorks, this nonprofit that was recruiting college students to move into some of these tougher neighborhoods in Orange County, in Santa Ana and Garden Grove, later in the city of Orange. And there was a team of college students who moved into this neighborhood. The idea was for 8 weeks to mentor kids, recreation programs, Bible clubs, and mentoring for that period of time, just to be kind of a positive role model for kids in some of these tougher neighborhoods. And having grown up in somewhat of a similar setting back in East LA, I thought, this would be an opportunity for me to give back to the community and to do something positive, productive during those 8 weeks. This was back in 1996. And those 8 weeks have turned into about 16 years now, and I moved into the 800 block of South Townsend Street, myself and about another 6 college students. And it just built some good friendships with the families there, with some of the teens that I was mentoring, and Santa Ana kind of grabbed hold of me or me of it, and we just kind of didn't we couldn't shake each other. I kind of, I just, Santana became home. It's a really, really cool city. Similar to my home in East LA, but it's a lot more of a sense of community. And so I continued to volunteer during that following year in college, then eventually went on staff with KidWorks, became the director of KidWorks for a number of years.
That's pretty cool. Can you describe how Townsend has changed over the years since you've been there?
Sure, it's changed quite a bit. It's the first night that we moved into the apartment. A couple of apartments. There was a guy's apartment, a girl's apartment. We were kind of settling in. Gunshots rang out, and a 19-year-old young man was shot and killed, actually, in drive-by right outside of our apartment, just in the back alley. There was a lot of just graffiti throughout the streets, the alley, the front of the apartment buildings. Drugs were rampant. The gang clearly had a stronghold there. The heroin was actually a big sort of the drug of choice, if you will, at the time, and there were some of the teenagers that were part of the gang that were dealing but also using, and it just was a pretty tough situation. And honestly, at the time, I was kind of thinking, what am I doing here? Why did I choose to come here and spend my summer here? I want to be back in East LA where I'll be safe and comfortable, just because it's home, although East LA itself has its challenges, but that's what I knew, right? And over the years, KidWorks, other nonprofit organizations, the city, through its Weed and Seed initiative, community revitalization initiative, that's how I first got connected with the city, actually is through this committee. There were efforts to come together and figure out, how do we make this neighborhood, support these kids and families, and make it better. So fast forward a decade and a half, there are apartment buildings that have been completely rehabbed, renovated completely. There's a community center that was planted right in the middle of that block, the 800 block of South Townsend. So the apartment buildings are being fixed up. There are options for kids and families after school. It's a lot more peaceful. The graffiti is virtually gone. The drug sales are virtually gone. It's a lot more of a neighborhood, actual neighborhood, where you can raise a family and not be in jeopardy of violence or drugs and losing your kids to gangs. So it's very, very different, positively.
How do you think KidWorks has helped change the area around Townsend?
A lot of KidWorks' mission, it's actually the direct mission is restoring at-risk neighborhoods one life at a time. That's what KidWorks is set out to do. And so that behind that is looking at, how do we empower the communities here, the teens, the kids, the adults, so that they can take their ownership of their neighborhood and improve quality of life, make things better, make things safer for themselves and for them to have a voice. I think in a lot of ways, families a decade and a half ago in neighborhoods like Townsend felt sort of powerless and felt like they didn't have a voice, and to a certain degree where they were sort of victim to or even subject to the powers of the negative element out there, the negative influences, whether it be gangs and drugs and such. And so the idea that KidWorks' mission has been, it shouldn't be that way. The majority, the silent majority in these neighborhoods are victims to the minority that's causing the problems. And so if we can empower that silent majority and create leadership programs and create situations where they're calling on their leaders and their community leaders, their city council members, their police chief, their city manager, their school district, and where they feel that they can call on them to listen and hear what their concerns are, and then work together to come up with strategies to improve things, then true change happens, where it's not just an organization coming in doing it for people, but where people feel empowered. And so that's what it's been, from something as simple as an after-school program where the kids started feeling like, okay, I can do better in school. I can have the support for school. The parents feeling like they had support from a nonprofit like KidWorks to help them help their kids, getting the parents involved in their PTAs in schools, a neighborhood association that was birthed out of that movement as well, where now there's regular meetings, monthly meetings, where residents can come together and talk about what the issues are, concerns are, and again, calling their leaders to come in and listen to those needs, those concerns, and be a part of that change. And so that's where essentially I think KidWorks has been a conduit by which people have been empowered to be able to take their neighborhood back. And along the way, it's been now some of our youth are going to some of the attending some of the most successful schools, whether it be private schools like Modern Day or some of our fundamental schools within the district. Our schools are improving again as parents are getting more involved, and these kids are being able to do better in school from preschool. You know, since KidWorks started preschool a few years ago, so preschool and up through high school and now college as well. So it's exciting. A lot of really positive neat things going on.
How do you think it would be, like, in what way could the people in KidWorks reach out to the community, to other people who haven't really heard about what KidWorks is, and how do you think they could help those students or people?
You know, I think a lot of what KidWorks can do is through the people who have been a part of the organization, of the efforts of the nonprofit, basically against the teens that are there, raising up leaders from there, and encouraging and challenging them and showing them how they can reach out to other teenagers to engage also in the process of improving their neighborhoods, their communities, their schools, and also the parents. Similar situation where, and they've started actually doing that within the last few years, is creating a parent council where the parents themselves would feel that it's not only do they have an opportunity, but in reality it's sort of all of our responsibility to engage and be a part of making our community, our city better and stronger and healthier. So it's really going through people who are out there and have already experienced change and sort of having it be a movement so that they encourage others, their neighbors or family and friends in the neighborhoods in the city to engage and be a part of that positive change as well.
What is your role in KidWorks?
Currently, I'm one of the members of the board of directors. Back when I started, I was a volunteer, an intern, college student, came in just to spend the summer. Then I continued to volunteer after that summer, just mentoring some of the teens that I had gotten to know. I ran a Bible study and continued to volunteer. And then I went on staff as a co-director initially of KidWorks, and I was a full-time director for a number of years. And then back in about early 2000s, I went from being a staff member to being the chairman of the board. So I chaired the board. KidWorks was actually a program under another nonprofit called Hispanic Ministry Center. So in early 2000s, KidWorks became its own nonprofit, its own community development nonprofit. And when that happened, I went from being the director to being the board chairman and the new board of directors. I was on the board for a number of years. And then when I was elected to the city council, I stepped off the board for a few years. And then recently, but I've still continued to live in the neighborhood and continued to be on the advisory, in their advisory council. And recently I was invited to join the board once again. So I'm back on the board of directors currently for KidWorks and continue to live in one of the KidWorks target neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Although Townsend has improved drastically over the years, what can people do to continue to improve the area? And how many people, roughly around how many people have become involved in changing Townsend?
As far as what can continue to happen, I think one of the main things is that when positive things start happening, I think it's important to continue to stay engaged and to stay involved and to not get comfortable. Basically, not that those of us who live in a community to not feel like, well, somebody else will do it or things are okay now, so there's really not a need for me to be involved. I think it's the opposite. It should hopefully drive people see success, see positive change, hopefully continue to stay engaged and continue to see how can we continue to improve our community, and not only their community, but then beginning to see, okay, how can we help and be a part of this being a movement where what happened here on Townsend Street can happen a few blocks away at Myrtle Street, or can happen just a quarter of a mile away at Pacific, or can happen in other neighborhoods, in close proximity throughout the city. So I think, again, continuing to stay involved and making sure that their neighborhood association stays strong and people stay engaged there, that they are part of also the groups like the parent council, the PTA, the local school, continuing to come together and networking so that they are helping each other out, and they have that, again, keep that movement going. As far as how many people have been a part of that change, I mean, it's been at least hundreds of residents, of people, some who have come and gone, some who no longer live there, have moved away and actually come back. And recently there was a family who ended up moving up to join another family in Central California, and they came back to visit. And way back they were involved with KidWorks, and so the kids at the time, they're now young adults, but kids at the time were involved in the after school programs, and they were, some of the teens were part of the teen programs, and the mom just helped and volunteered wherever she could. If there was some type of community event, she'd make food, make drinks, whatever. It was just everybody pitched in whatever little that they could. And so they came back after having been away for a number of years to visit, and they were talking about how it's just so different, night and day from where it was. I think they moved away about 7 years ago, and so it's people like that, families like them, where like they say in Spanish, pusieron su granito de arena. They put their little, they put in their 2 cents, their help, and so it's been, again, at least hundreds of people. From KidWorks staff, I would say there's been at least 10, 15, maybe 20 staff members who've been there throughout the years and have put in their contributions. Like I said, at least hundreds, if not thousands, of people who over the years have contributed to make the change. And it's been a community effort. I can't say that it's been 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people, but it's been everybody pitching in and coming together to make it happen.
Like, what is KidWorks? I think you already said this one. What is KidWorks' role as a nonprofit organization? You kind of explained that already, right?
Yeah, I think one of the main things, it is to look at community development, to look at and that this is really what they're set out to do is, and I think I did touch a little bit on it, is but looking at the neighborhood as a whole, the community as a whole, and they have specific areas, geographic areas. You see this in this area of Central Santa Ana, in this pocket around Townsend Street and Myrtle Street, and specifically neighborhood associations, the Bella Vista Neighborhood Association, the Casa Bonita Neighborhood Association, and going over into that Central City Neighborhood Association, is just wanting to see what are the opportunities that there are for the assets, basically the strengths in this neighborhood, and how do we build on those strengths, whether it's all the youth or the parents or the schools or the parks or the neighborhoods, the neighborhood leaders. How do we build on those strengths to then address what the needs are, the challenges in this neighborhood? And so there's sort of one who has helped create that voice and create that attention, but also a synergy to bring those people together, to be able to collectively be a part of making a difference and doing something positive and transforming and improving their community.
What motivational words would you tell youth that are facing difficult circumstances?
I think one of the main things that change can happen, and I'll take it a step back. Just my own story. My parents are both from Mexico, so I'm second generation Mexican American myself, and I grew up in, I didn't know, but I grew up in a poor family. I didn't know that I was poor until way later when I ended up going to college, and I realized that not everybody lives in that with a limited income and finances that me and my family, my siblings, grew up in. I thought we were wealthy. I thought we were doing well. We had our own home, but times are challenging. at times. And my dad got to 5th grade in Mexico before he ended up having to stop going to school to help my grandfather. He was the oldest in the family, help my grandfather make ends meet. My mom reached 7th grade. And so, and they're again both in Mexico. They came out here both at a young age. They met out here in the United States, but with a very limited education, limited English. But they came with seeing that the opportunities that the United States would be able to provide not only for them and their future, but for their future family, and essentially for me and my siblings. And so, for a young person who's facing obstacles, facing challenges, there are so many opportunities. Our parents saw it, and hopefully we can tap into that vision that our parents have, and realize that there are a lot of opportunities that this country and that our communities and our cities have to offer us if we will get engaged and volunteer as you have, and look at how we can take advantage and benefit from those. But then one of the main things is that we can be, and we can be that change. We can be that change agent. It doesn't have to be, things don't have to stay the way they are, and it doesn't have to be somebody else who does it. But as we get engaged, as we decide to become leaders, to volunteer, to see challenges as opportunities to make a difference, and look for those mentors, for those role models, for those programs, such as the library here, such as KidWorks, such as other programs in after-school programs or clubs in their schools, looking at those, seeking those out to be able to have those be what helps empower them to be a part of that change. And frankly, I'm looking to you all, you guys as teens, as those leaders who will make that change, that our communities will be different, will be better, will be stronger and healthier, in the next generation. So hang in there, stick with it, be that change, and make it happen, and let us who are in positions of adults, maybe positions of leadership, know how we can support you, what the needs are, because that's what we're here for, to really listen and respond to those needs. So you all young people have a lot more, I think, power and influence than some might realize, some youth might realize. So they can make a significant difference if they'd like to.
Okay. Can you dispel any rumors about residents being intimidated by council members?
It's kind of interesting because I think more often than not we feel kind of intimidated when we see a group of residents that aren't too happy with something that's happening in the city. Whenever there are controversies or things that people are not too happy about, they can, and they do, and they should come to our city council meetings and let us know. And at times the council chambers have filled, and we have people with signs and people lined up to come speak and let us know about things that they're concerned about, not too happy about. So that's kind of a scary time sometimes for us as well. But I would definitely hope that our community members, residents, would not feel intimidated or would not feel that they can't approach the city council, the city staff, whether it be the city manager, police chief, or directors of parks and recreation, or library, or public works. We're all here because of the residents. And one of the things too that I want to make a point is that it doesn't matter their residency. I mentioned my parents came from Mexico, very limited English. My father didn't have legal documentation to be here when he first came out here. And we have a lot of people in our community that come from different backgrounds, different countries, different nationalities, and it's important for them to be able to realize that they, regardless of all of that background, this is their community now, and they can and should be a part of that change. And truly, we're here to respond to them, and so it can definitely be through public meetings at the city council. And they should use that as a vehicle. It's part of the democratic process. That's a pretty cool process in this country that we can be a part of. But then there's also one-on-one meetings. I have every first Saturday of the month from when I was first elected back in 2006. It's 2012 now. First Saturday of every month. at the Southwest Senior Center at Jerome Park. I'm there from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. That morning, just inviting residents. I want people to come and share with me what their questions, what their concerns, what their ideas for improving Santa Ana are. So all my colleagues on the council are also approachable, and so I would hope that people would come and approach us and let us know. And if there's anything, specific concerns or anything that would help us, that we need to be made aware of, so that it could help us know how we can better create communication, I would hope that people would let us know.
Okay. So you were saying that even if they're not residents or anything, like California residents, they can still...
Anybody and everybody. If in fact we have, especially those people who live here in Santa Ana, who call Santa Ana home. In fact, we have a translator who's there at every meeting. So if somebody doesn't speak English, or doesn't speak English, is not very comfortable or confident in their English, they can come and speak in their native tongue, and it'll be translated into English for the audience, for the council, for the folks watching on TV from home. So it's there. It's the residents of Santa Ana, whether they're whatever their original background is, but if they're living in Santa Ana. But reality is, it's not only even limited to residents of Santa Ana. It's not even limited to whether you live in Santa Ana or not. We have people from other cities who come and speak out on issues that might be more of a regional concern that impacts Orange County as a whole, or they might have an interest in sharing something with us. And so nobody is blocked, and frankly, nobody can be stopped from speaking. Legally, we can't tell somebody you can't speak. So hopefully that alone will let people know that they can come and share whatever concerns, complaints, ideas they have for Santa Ana, for us as leaders, community leaders, to be able to hear and hopefully respond to.
That's pretty awesome. I didn't know that. Okay.
And all ages too.
That's pretty awesome. Okay. Should I wait till it blinks? Or should I continue?
You can continue.
Okay. If a resident wanted to contact you, how would he or she go about doing so?
There's a city council office here at City Hall, and so there's a number of ways. One is they can, if they choose to want to go personally, they can go. It's the 8th floor at City Hall. They can usually, we all have other jobs, so we're not there most of the time, but they can speak to our assistants there and they'll communicate to us. That's one. Coming by to the City Hall office, City Council office on the 8th floor. They can also call us at 714-647-6900. That's the city council number, 714-647-6900. They can also email us. Can either email me directly if it was me that they wanted to speak to, and it's my first initial D, last name Benavides, so dbenavides@santa-ana.org, or they can email the whole council at council@santa-ana.org. If they wanted to meet with me directly, personally, through any of those options, either by visiting City Hall, by emailing, or by calling, they can ask for a personal an appointment, or they can just drop in first Saturday of the month at the Southwest Senior Center there at Jerome Park, and just walk in, drop in, and talk with me, and bring, again, whatever questions, concerns that they might have, and talk that way. So hopefully those are, through those different options, and people do take advantage of that, and let us know, but hopefully more people will choose to do it as well.
Yeah. What do you think residents can do to improve our city?
Find just any way to be involved, get engaged. Honestly, it's I don't think people realize how much influence they really can have. Even something as simple as coming and speaking at a council meeting, taking some time to come to a council meeting. You get 3 minutes to come in and express a concern that they have in their neighborhood or whatever it is. From there, you have everybody who's there: the city manager, the police chief, the public works director, all of the people who are in charge of these different city departments are there. All 7 council members. So, somebody comes and expresses a concern, they better believe that there's going to be follow-up. So something as simple as that, getting involved in a neighborhood association. The neighborhood associations have a lot of influence on making things better. Because now if there's a concern that comes in at a neighborhood association, and they express it to their council member, to the city manager, now they're speaking on behalf of several thousand people who live in this neighborhood. And so there's weight behind that, there's influence behind that. Getting involved in their school, the PTA. If there is not a neighborhood association, talking to some of their neighbors, talking to the city and the neighborhood improvement department, and figuring out how to get the support and help to start a neighborhood association. Getting involved in nonprofit. There's so many different things. Just get engaged. I think one of the things that if there are things that are not improving, whether it be in our city, in Santa Ana, in their neighborhood, in their school, or in any other place throughout, in any other city, in any other community, it's because of lack of engagement and involvement of the people in that community. It's pretty easy to get frustrated with things that are not going well, and it's pretty easy to express our frustration. But by expressing frustration to ourselves or amongst ourselves, our neighbor, our friend, that in and of itself is not going to make things better. But it's when we choose to, okay, I'm so frustrated with this that I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to let somebody know that is in a position of influence, or I'm going to organize an effort around this, or I'm going to get volunteers behind this. Or maybe it's not a frustration. Maybe it's, I've got this great idea to do this community celebration, and how great would it be for us, for every summer, for there to be this celebration that unites our neighbors and brings people together. It can be basically a positive thing. All of that comes out of an idea. Any change comes out of an idea that one person has. And then if they choose to get involved and run with that idea, that's where the change happens. So get engaged, get involved, find some place to not to sit back and watch and be let apathy set in, but get engaged and be a part of the process, and change will happen.
And could you describe the neighborhood association a bit more?
Sure. So a neighborhood association, it's different than, there are things called the homeowner associations, where if you live, for example, in a condominium complex, you have to pay a certain amount, and what that means and you have to do that. You have to be you're automatically a part of this homeowners association, and you pay something monthly, and they take care of maintenance and a number of things in your complex. And the neighborhood association, though, is different from that. So I mention that so that people know that there's a distinction. A neighborhood association in Santa Ana, frankly, I think it's one of the things that makes Santa Ana unique from most other Southern California cities. It's something that's voluntary, where a number of neighbors, just people who live next door to each other or live around the corner from each other, decide that they want to come together and they want to do something positive for their neighborhood, and so they identify certain boundaries, from this street to this street, or from that school to this park, or whatever the case might be. They identify a certain area. Usually it's a number of blocks radius, and from there they contact neighborhood improvement at City Hall, and they say, we're interested in coming together and organizing a neighborhood association. And then they get out there and they let their neighbors know. Typically they meet like once every other month, sometimes once a month, sometimes once a quarter, and they get together around things. It could be something like there's speeding in this neighborhood, or our park isn't as improved as it should be, or there's a gang problem in the neighborhood, or it can be something like we want to have a 4th of July celebration. We want to block off the streets in our neighborhood, and we want people to just come together and celebrate together as neighbors. Or we want to have a little parade in our neighborhood for Christmas. Or we want to have a concert where we block off the street and people come out and there's a live band and we have dancing and just fun. So it can be any number of things, just common interest. Excuse me. And so, again, a few people coming together, maybe one or a couple people with an idea, They start talking about it. They go to the city. The city helps them, walk them through the process to get the word out, find a place to meet. Oftentimes it's at a school or at a community center. And then the city then starts getting involved in responding to whatever concerns that neighborhood association has, and change happens. Again, that's actually one of the ways that I first got started. First it was volunteering with KidWorks, and then it was this community revitalization committee called Weed and Seed with the city. And then we realized, we really, other neighborhoods have neighborhood associations, why shouldn't we? So then we started, organizing and letting people know. We formed a neighborhood association, and then eventually, a few years after that is when I ended up running for city council. But I saw a lot of change happen to our neighborhood.
We're almost done. I understand you went to Biola University. Can you tell me how it was for you, and why did you decide to come to Santa Ana?
I did attend Biola University. I mentioned before I grew up in East Los Angeles. Biola is a university. It's a private university. It's a small university. It's a Christian faith-based university as well. Myself, my family have a long history of Christian faith, and so I saw it as an opportunity to get a higher education, go to college. I was the first in my family to go to college. I'm one of 7 kids. I'm the 4th one, right in the middle, and I was the first one to be able to take that opportunity to go to the university. And so Biola was a good school. I received the financial aid that I needed to be able to attend. And so it was, again, a cross-section, putting my faith together with higher education. While I was a student at Biola, one of the things, again, from just my own values and Christian faith, is that our faith is to be something that drives us to action, to give back to the community, to serve, to try to demonstrate caring and support for people and communities around us. And that's what Christian faith is about. That's what Jesus was about, caring for those with need, right? And I then saw an opportunity to be able to be involved with this nonprofit called KidWorks, mentoring kids for a summer. So it was from my time at Biola, to my experience at Biola, that I came and moved into Santa Ana, to a neighborhood in Santa Ana, one of the more challenging neighborhoods on Townsend Street, to be connected with KidWorks, which is a nonprofit, Christian-based nonprofit, to volunteer for those 8 weeks. And so it was out of that I ended up staying, and making Santa Ana home. So that was why I ended up at Biola, how my time Biola connected me with Santa Ana and with KidWorks, and how I ended up here talking with you this afternoon.
Okay.
And congratulations on being accepted and going to Biola as well. You shared with me a bit ago that that's the school you'll be going to. Good school.
Yeah. Thank you. Are there any last words you would like to say as a council member before we finish?
I believe that Santa Ana's best days are still ahead. I love this city. I think a lot of people that live in Santa Ana choose to live in Santa Ana because of who we are as a city, because of our diversity, because we're not a bland kind of cookie cutter community. There's a lot of energy around cities. We're the only true urban center and city in Orange County. Sometimes other folks that are in other parts of the county who prefer more kind of quiet community don't necessarily like the fact that there's so much energy and activity, and with being an urban center there comes challenge, and that there are challenges, there are issues that any big city faces, whether it's Los Angeles or Miami or Chicago or New York or Portland. These are all cities where people go to vacation, but with any big city there are issues, there's crime, there's other challenges. But part of that just mix of people, that density of a lot of people in a place, makes it exciting, makes it fun. You have different cultures coming together, different languages, you have the arts, and you have again people from other countries. And so all of that, I make Santa Ana very unique, very special. I love this place. And we're at a place here right now in 2012 where at one point back in the 1950s and before, Santa Ana was the hub of Orange County and was a place to be. And then, like every other city, big city especially, there was urban flight. There was a lot of people who left the city and went out to the suburbs. And with that came a lot of challenge, more challenge. There was lack of investment, lack of businesses, lack of jobs. And we experienced that in Santa Ana for a period of time. And we're back on an upswing. People want to be in Santa Ana. There's businesses coming in. There's people moving in. People maybe whose kids, people who moved away, a couple decades ago. Their kids are saying, we don't necessarily want to be in a quiet bedroom community. We want to be where the action is. And Santa Ana, is being that exciting urban center, is where it is. And so there's people from throughout the country that are watching what's going on and the exciting things that are going on in Santa Ana, from restaurants to art galleries to the youth. We're the youngest city in the nation. And so again, through you and your generation and next generations, I think there's going to be such a wealth of leadership, of educated young people, of professionals who are going to be able to continue to make Santa Ana a thriving destination city and place. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully this is being videoed 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now. Maybe if somebody watches this, they'll be able to see how 2012 we were talking, it was sort of the beginnings of just the beauty that our city will continue to become in the next few years, next couple of decades. So it takes people coming together and believing in our city, sticking with it and being a part of that. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully there's a lot of others that are as well, and let's just continue to pour into Santa Ana and see it continue to thrive.
We were just informed earlier, a couple weeks ago, that the library isn't going over to the county, and I just wanted to thank you for not allowing that.
Sure.
And for recognizing how important the library is for us,
Yeah.
because it has really, as my mom said, and as other parents have heard, that the library is a safe place for students to go, and some parents actually like it because the teen space has helped a lot, because instead of their children being out in the streets doing bad things, they're here actually helping their community.
Yeah. I thank you for one, for saying thanks, but a lot of it, frankly, Stacey, has to do with seeing the success of teen space, of people and students, young people like yourself, who have made the library their own and have made it more than just a building that holds books, but a building that's alive, that is where there's energy, where there's life change and community change happening. And it's become an art gallery at times too, and it's become a place of gathering, a place of assistance, of tutoring, of relationships, of a hub of just transformation here in the city. And so it was a result of seeing people, and young people, I think mainly, make it their own, that as we were definitely dealing with tough decisions as a city council, kind of back to one of those questions, what the city council does is make sure that we have a balanced budget so that we can stay afloat and provide services to the community. We were going through a time where we were having very, very, very limited funds, and we were looking at how can we shrink costs. And one of those ideas, in some cases, it's looking at, can we, rather than operating our own department, if we merge it with another department such as a county, then maybe it'll cost us less, because now it's a bigger agency that's covering it. And so we had to ask these tough questions. I'm glad that we didn't have to go there with the library, so that it can still be a part of that intimate community that is Santa Ana. So there's a lot going on here, and I do believe that it's still, Teen Center's only been here a couple of years. At this point, we have another teen center, second over at Jerome Center, in my neighborhood, right around Townsend Street, and hopefully it'll just continue to thrive and grow. And so seeing that opportunity is part of what made it so that it was a tougher decision for us to make, and made it easier to say, no, we need to keep the library, our own Santana Community Library, so we can continue to support our young people and those who make the library their own. So thank you for everything you do and the other teams.
They call it 21st Century Library. And I think that's it. Thank you for coming and taking your time to meet with me today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the invitation. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Stacey. Congratulations.
That's it.
Perfect.
Good job.